Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're learning how to make a baby frock dress. This dress can be made for babies from ages of 1 to 4 years. So just before we start the tutorial, make sure you subscribe to this channel, give this video a thumbs up and leave your comments. So let's get started. Now I'm using my pattern paper because this is a tutorial. You could actually do this directly on your fabric. So this is the edge of my paper, serving as my center front. Now I'm going to start by drawing my shoulder line. Okay, so this is my shoulder line. Next is the chest line. So you might want to ask, how do you get the chest line? Just take the child's armhole circumference and divide it by 2. That will give you the distance from the shoulder to the chest line. It applies to adults too. Then next thing after the chest line is the half length or the waist length, whichever one. So I'm using 9 inch. This dress is for a 4-year-old. So I will just draw the waistline with my ruler. Okay. So now this is my waistline. Now on the shoulder line, I'm going to mark half of the across back measurement or the shoulder measurement, and I'll mark the same thing on the chest line. Okay, so same measurement. Now I'll use my ruler to draw a dotted line like that. Then still on the chest line, I'm going to mark quarter of the child's chest circumference. Yes, there's no bust for now for children. So you're taking the chest circumference measurement and then you add 1 inch for seam allowance. Then on the waistline, you mark the waist circumference measurement, quarter of it, or sometimes the waist and the chest circumference are almost the same thing. So it depends. So I'll just connect it together and then also mark out my seam allowance. Next thing to do will be to mark the neckline. So for children of ages 1 to 4, 2.5 inch is fine for the neck width and the neck depth. I mean for the front pattern, 2.5 inch is fine for both neck width and neck depth is fine. So I'm just trying to draw the neckline like so. Okay, so for shoulder slant, half inch is fine for kids. I'll just draw my shoulder slant like this, and then next thing is to draw out the armhole. But for children, I prefer to use my pattern master to draw out the armhole because the normal French curve is actually too curvy for the armhole for kids. So I use the armhole inside the pattern master. There's an inner one. This one is much better and more accurate. So I'll just draw out the neckline, the armhole. Make sure you position it very well. Make sure the armhole is not too deep. Just, place it well and then you get it. So that's it. It's so simple. So this is my front pattern. And we're going to use this to also cut out the back. Alright, so I have another paper here and I have marked my 1 inch for zipper here. So we just simply use the front to cut out the back. So you want to use your pin to hold that down, Then for the neckline, the back, you can actually make it higher or lower. It depends on your preference. But my back neckline for this tutorial, I want it to be higher than the back and the front, I mean to say. So it depends on you actually. So I'll just raise the neckline. So meaning that my back neck depth, I'll be using just about 1 inch. You can make yours lower anyway. So my 2 patterns are ready. Last thing we're going to do now is to reshape the waistline. So on the side, I'm just going to come up by 1 inch and then I will just slant it this way. Okay. So it's just to give the dress some form of fitting around the waistline. So I'm cutting off the excess like so. Okay, now I'll just go ahead and transfer all this to my fabric. Okay, so front and back patterns ready. Now you want to add seam allowance to the neckline, the shoulder, and the armhole, and the waistline. Same thing for the back. Center front is cut on fold, don't forget. And then the back, same thing, add all your seam allowances to all the necessary places. And then we're done. Now for the layered part of the skirt, you're going to be cutting out 3 rectangles. Yes, 3 rectangles like this. So these are the 3 pieces, rectangles. They must be of the same width. So I'm using 8 inches. I've taken into consideration seam allowance for hemming. So this is 18 inches. Okay. Then the length is going to be the child's waist circumference measurement times 3 or 2. Depends on the fullness you want, but at least times 3. Okay. So first now, I'm just folding it for us to see. This is the waist circumference times 3. Okay. Now, I will take this to the sewing machine and do a rolled hem at the lower part alone. I'll just roll it 1/4 of an inch twice on the 3 pieces. Okay. Then of course, I'm trying to separate my patterns for the bodies. This is my front. So I use crepe material and I use the same material as my lining. Same thing for the back. So the back, I have 4 pieces too. 2 for fabric, 2 for lining. Now we're going to be cutting the skirts for the dress. It is on the skirts that we're going to be placing the layers. Okay, so I've folded my fabric into 2 like this. Okay, so I'm going to measure out the length of my bodice first, then the remaining length of the skirts. You understand? So I'm working with 25 inches for the total length of the dress. Okay, so from here to this point is the total length of the dress plus seam allowance for hemming. Now I'm going to place the front pattern on that point where I measured. Okay, like this. Just pin it down. So don't forget, I already added seam allowance to the body, so I don't need to add side seam allowance to the skirt again. Okay, so here, what I have on the waist, I'm going to measure it at the hemline here. Then, depending on the fullness you want, you add at least 4 or 5 inches. Okay, depends on what you want. So I'm just going to add 4 inches to mine. So that's it. So we're trying to create an A-line skirt, which is going to be like the base for the layers. Okay, so don't forget that the waistline is slanted. I'll connect that to the hemline now with my ruler. Please always make sure you use your tools when you're drafting. Don't use freehand to draw the line. Don't be straight. So I'm using my ruler to connect like this. Okay, then you also add 1/2 inch to the waistline, just the waistline. Now I'm going to use my pattern master to create like a curve around the hemline. I'll just come up by 2 inches or 1.5 inch. It's just to create a curve so that the skirt doesn't look, just straight like that. So I'm taking up the bodice pattern now and I'll just cut out. Don't forget to add 1/2 inch to the waist here. And we already have side seam allowance on the skirt since the bodice already had side seam allowance. Yes. So I will just trim off here into the curve like this. So this is the front of the skirt. Okay, I'll fold my fabric again like this. We're trying to cut out the back now. Okay, so To cut out the back, I'll just add 1 inch for zipper allowance. I'm going to mark it out first. So I know a lot of us like drawing lines with our bare hands. You're supposed to use a ruler, please. It affects the overall outcome of the garment. Use a ruler. Yeah. So this is it. Now I can place the front on the fabric and cut out the back. So this is the skirts, and it's on the skirts that we're going to be arranging the layers. So I'll just open up the zipper allowance like this. So this is my center back, okay, and this is my front. I'll open it up, okay, and then I'll place the 2 back pieces on the front. I'll go ahead and sew with 1 inch seam allowance. Same thing on the other side, 1 inch seam allowance. So let me do that. Okay guys, so after joining it like I've done, you're going to take your tape rule and mark where you're going to be arranging the layers. From the waistline, I'm going to mark 4.5 inch round. So that's my the second layer rather. Then from here, I'm going to mark 5 inches round. This is where I'm going to place the 3rd layer. The first layer will be placed on the waistline. I hope I'm making sense. Let me just show you what I'm saying. This is the first layer here. I've already hemmed the lower parts, okay? Then the waist, I have gathered the waist, back to the waistline of the skirts. And so that's the first layer. Then the second layer will be placed on that first line we drew, the first curve. So I'll go ahead and gather it, but you won't gather it to the waist because this second layer is longer. Same thing for the 3rd layer. The length on the skirts for the 3rd layer is longer again, so you're going to measure it and gather it back to that length. Okay guys, so here I've attached the first one on the waistline, the second one on the first line, and then we'll attach the 3rd one. It's that simple. I told us it's simple. It's not difficult to do at all. So for my bodice, I'm going to join the front and back together at the shoulder like this, fabric and lining. Okay, so I've done that already. Can you see? So I'll just go ahead and sew the bodice. Okay, so here's my bodice. I've already turned the fabric and lining together. This is the skirt, and I've added the 3rd layer. Now one more thing, make sure the 3rd layer is a bit longer than the skirts, please, at least 1 inch. Okay, now I'm going to attach my bodice to the skirts and then fix my zipper, and we are done. It's so simple. I told us. Here, so we're done with the dress. You can actually increase the number of layers if you want to, but at least you have an idea of what it looks like. So this is the end of the tutorial. Please make sure you subscribe, and thank you for watching. Bye.